Okay, so what we saw was a quick demo of HCM Campus Solutions as well as the Higher Education Hub integrated together. We're a little bit short of time, so what I'm going to do is quickly run through what a typical project looks like in a situation like this. Oops. So, I mean, you know, the project timelines on things like this vary greatly. This is one project that we had done. It is by no means. I mean, these projects go from 5 months to a year, and the reason generally for the length is not the effort, but the delays that happen when you have these projects. So, for example, if something an MDM implementation is being done by itself, standalone, you can generally get the system in and up very quickly. If it's being done in conjunction with a very large system upgrade, let's say a student system upgrade or an HCM upgrade or new install or something like that, then we would synchronize our project to that project, and those things, just the reality, folks, is those things tend to take time, right? So when the larger project takes time, then these MDM implementations take time. So realistically, we're talking of 5 months to 1 year type time frames. The actual effort involved is not very large, and in fact, we have in this thing, what we've done is we've created now a virtual machine with some prepackaged sort of technology, if you will, right? That allows for a fairly quick install, and we also do some cloud versions of this product now, so we can install the product in our data centers, and it can be accessed over kind of just an internet connection for the initial deployment, and then transferred over to your premises as you get your hardware and other systems up. So there's a number of different deployment techniques, but this is not a 3-year journey or a 5-year. I mean, those things, it can be that long if you decide to take on very large deployments of MDM, but typical MDM projects take between 4 or 5 months and 1 year. For at least for the first phase, more like 4 or 5 months for the first phase, and then goes longer. Typical resources we bring onto the project, again, this varies greatly. Solution architects, business analysts. I mean, you've seen this stuff. Configuration leads, data migration folks. Typical folks you bring on to the project are PMs, business analysts, config people. We like it. Our goal is to make you self-sufficient in implementing and running this product. So that's why we've done all this pre-packaging work. So the idea is that if we can bring you up to speed on the project and the product, right, as soon as possible, then it is much better for everyone long term. So we'd much rather that you bring yourself up to speed on this, and we teach you how, and then you do it yourself. So that's generally what it is. I'm going to stop here and see if there's any questions. So let's see. I'm going to go to the questions panel. So if there's any questions, folks, then there's on your control panel, right, there's a way to type in questions and ask them. And I'm just looking in here, and I don't see any, but anything that we haven't answered that you think we should be doing? Juliette, if you have any thoughts on what we can be talking about that we haven't touched yet.
Nimish, this is Juliette. From a pre-preparation standpoint, so what kinds of things can JMU be doing prior to the start of the project? What are the data points, or what are the maybe a few things they can be doing to get ready for deployment and that sort of thing?
Absolutely. So great one. So there's several things that you can do to make a project like this both short in terms of time frames, but most importantly successful, right? I mean, at the end of the day, these things need to come up and generate business value as soon as possible. So there's a few things that we have observed. Now, these are in no particular order, but I'll just give you some of the observations from other clients, both in this industry but also other industries. So point one is that MDM projects tend to be misunderstood. not everyone in the institution will always necessarily understand why this thing is necessary, this product's necessary, why do we have to do this, and so therefore you tend to get into a situation of resources. So, you know, great idea, but we don't have time right now. Let's just do this next year. We're really important. We have to get this other project up and so on and so forth. So you have, this is one of the most common objections. So the way that we recommend our customers to solve it or address it is to identify the value proposition of MDM in a very specific fashion. So if it is you're replacing an old mainframe student system with a new campus solution system, right, then the specific value proposition, that would be, I believe, one of the use cases for Colorado. Then one of the value propositions might be data quality and cleansing and removal of duplicates. Another attendant value proposition might be, hey, can we coexist the new and the old systems for a period of one say, you know, academic year, so that the old students are in the old system and the new enrollments on the new system, and then over some time we cut it over, that kind of thing. That's something specific like that would help. So the point one is determine the business value. If it's an identity management situation, right, then again, specifically, what about the deployment can we help it improve? I mean, we have some experience there. So point one, let's establish a very narrow, very specific business proposition. Point two, let's establish some of the very narrow, sort of immediate short-term goals, that outcomes that we would have to have for this thing to be successful. You know, it's all fine and lovely to make the project very large and grandiose sounding, you know, when it comes to positioning it to the institution, but when it comes to deployment, our strong recommendation is chop it up into pieces, do a small piece first, get the training and kind of get used to the technology in-house. Don't try to bite the whole thing off. You know what Carol said, how do you eat an elephant one bite at a time? I mean, that's so true. Take it a step at a time. So if we can chunk the project up into something small and deploy that, you know, so that's the second thing. First is decide the value proposition. Second, make it small. Then finding the resources and or the people involved will not be so hard, because we've made it so narrow that hopefully you get the support from them. So Juliette, those are the things we find tend to hang us up. You know, we get into an implementation and the client suddenly says, oh, we need to sell so-and-so, you know, individual or area of business to be, you know, signed up to this program. They're not yet ready yet. So we encounter delays because of that. The other thing we encounter delays of, and this sounds kind of crazy, is, you know, is the procurement of hardware. It's a strange thing, but the reason I make the point earlier about this virtual machine and this cloud-based deployments is one of the things we see often is our customers have trouble getting hardware. It shouldn't be, or you might argue, but they just have trouble getting hardware. And getting through, you know, deployed in the IT organization, getting the shop provisioned and all this stuff, it takes time. So preparing for that and or coming up with an alternative, like start the deployment to configuration on Lumendata servers, and then at the right point transfer the whole VM over, right? That kind of thing. So that's the second thing we see. First is prepare properly by the project scope and chunk up the project. The second is hardware thing, and then third is lay out a vision or a roadmap so that people don't have the reaction of, hey, we bought all this technology just for this one little project. How can that be? So the vision and the roadmap can excite people, while the short-term chunking of the project will get us immediate success. So those are some of the things.
Excellent.
Oh, here's a question. Oh, okay. What does your, so Bernie is asking, what does your 5 to 12 month schedule assume about data governance? Okay. Does the schedule assume data governance solution discussion have been completed? Great question. So yes, the 5 to 12, let's talk about data governance because Carol mentioned that as well. I did not mention it in this presentation just because it, you know, it gets a bit much to talk about that. But so data governance, we've done that for Utah, we've done that for UNC. You know, Carol's in the middle of significant data governance activity. Data governance is a, ideally, if we all had the luxury of, you know, doing the right thing, you would do this data, the project prep work and data governance work up front, right, before you start a higher ed deployment. In practice, though, what tends to happen is senior management tends to go off of specific deliverables and tend to be more systems oriented. I mean, data governance is, again, one of those things that a lot of folks don't seem to quite get at the senior management level, unfortunately. So what we then do is we do a data governance activity in parallel, Bernie, to the deployment. So the specific steps would be that we would start a data governance activity, which generally, again, I mean, you know, your mileage will vary, as they say, but basically we're talking about, you know, a couple months type activity for a specifically narrow or well-defined scope of data governance, okay? Again, like I said, please don't imagine there's just 2 months. It can be a little bit here or there, but that's kind of time frame we're talking about. So what we do is we engage in a data governance activity, and that has we have a whole discipline and approach around that we can talk about. In parallel to that, and we dovetail that, by the way, into the business requirements gathering. So that fits very nicely, actually, those two. And then in parallel to that, we start all this sort of configuration, some of the initial deployment, some of the initial data loads, data profiling, and that kind of work. So we can organize it so data governance occurs in parallel to the 5 to 12 month. The project plan I showed you in the presentation did not have data governance in it, but that would be in parallel. So it does not extend the schedule. It does add a couple of resources. So, but we would recommend ideally you do data governance first and then start the project. If you can't, if you don't have that luxury, then do it in parallel. Other thoughts, any comments? We're actually beyond the time frame, I think, of what we had said, but I'm happy to stick around for a few minutes more if folks have any other questions or comments. Any other comments or thoughts, questions? Because if not, then I recommend we end this. I don't want to take Carol's time for granted, because Carol, thank you so much. You've been very gracious with your time, and folks, thank you all for taking so much of your time on this webinar. I hope it was useful. We tried to keep the marketing to a minimum, although we had to have some advertorials in there, and I do apologize for that. But hopefully you did get some value out of it. And if we did not cover something, I'd be more than happy to get on the phone with you in any fashion, one-on-one or whatever form you feel better, even in person, to clarify and or demo and or discuss more. Well, so then I think we'll be done. Thank you, folks, again. Have a good evening. Have a great weekend, and we'll be talking soon, I'm sure. All the best.